this is the most common way that coaches in this country try to change the behavior of their kids. You do what I ask you to do. I'm going to reward you, playing time, whatever, attention. If you don't, maybe we don't want to call it punishment, but there's a negative consequence. But, what's the problem with relying on this kind of motivation?
It's extrinsic.
I'm sorry?
It's dependent upon you.
Okay, it's dependent upon me. It's not internal.
It's extrinsic.
It's extrinsic. I am really almost deaf, so...
The coach is in control of the relationship in this model.
I'm going to give you...
And the carrot has to continue to get bigger and sweeter.
Yeah.
And
Very, very materialistic. Carrots cost money. They are expensive. What happens when you use a stick on somebody?
it eventually breaks or you break them.
They get pissed off. Now, if you're a coach and you've got total control over an athlete, maybe they'll take it, but there are problems. There are other problems with using carrots and sticks. Fortunately, there's another way to change behavior. Hope Lab is a Bay Area nonprofit started by the wife of one of the founders of eBay. Anybody heard of Hope Lab before? They, one of the things they do is they work with high school kids, teenage kids who have cancer. And one of the things, you know, there's been just miraculous developments in medical technology. And so these kids have medicine cocktails that if they take them regularly, they have a much greater chance of surviving. But what they found out was these kids were not taking their meds. And so, being in Silicon Valley, they decided to create a video game called Remission. Pretty clever. The video game was had 20 different levels. Each level had a certain amount of information about why these kids should be taking their meds. So level 1 would go through one thing, level 2. The good news is that the kids who went through this video game started taking their meds more regularly. But love it when there's research and they get a surprising result. Here's the surprising result. The kids who dipped their toe into only one level of the game started taking their meds just as much as the kids who went through all 20 levels. Why do you think that is? Wouldn't you think that a kid who went through all 20 levels would be more fastidious about taking their meds? But that's not the case. Kids who didn't even finish one level start taking their meds. Any thoughts? You can't answer because you heard me do this before.
Well, I heard you do it before too, just on the website. So
Okay.
I won't say it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, it changed the way they think about taking their meds.
Yeah.
So expose them to a new way of thinking about the process.
This is Roxy, R-O-X-X-I. Roxy is, do you see what Roxy has there? She has a ray gun. What do you think Roxy uses for ammunition in her ray gun?
The meds.
Chemo. So Roxy is a warrior who destroys cancer cells. Now, it was never about information. It was never that these kids aren't stupid. They knew that they should be taking their meds and that they would be more likely to live longer if they took their meds. But the reason they weren't taking their meds was because it made them feel like a victim. And they didn't want to feel like a victim. When they got a load of Roxy, so this is why they didn't have to go through all 20 levels. There wasn't information. They saw Roxy, who was a warrior, who was killing cancer, and all of a sudden their identity changed from being a victim to being a warrior. When they took their meds, they were killing cancer cells. They were a warrior. Identity is simply what we try to live up to so we can look ourselves in the mirror. Now, we have an identity for athletes. We call it the triple impact competitor. Make yourself better, make your teammates better, and make the game better. The question is, how do we get kids to change their identity from being, win at all cost, a D competitor, to a triple impact competitor. Well, we got answers. Chip Heath and Dan Heath. This is Chip Heath. Chip is a business school student, business school professor at Stanford, and he's on our national advisory board. And he and his brother wrote a book called Switch: How to Make Change When Change is Hard. And they have a concept they call the destination postcard. The destination postcard is, can somebody read that definition of it for me, nice and loud? Don't wait for somebody, Roxy, like a woman.
A vivid picture from the near-term future that shows what could be possible. Chip and Dan Heath.
So, here's the deal. If you've got a kid who's having trouble getting his homework done, and he says, when I go home today, I'm going to go immediately and work on my homework, versus that same kid who says, when I go home today, I'm going to walk in the door, I'm going to take my book bag off, I'm going to go sit in this chair in the living room, and I'm going to sit down and pull out my book and do my homework. That kid is much more likely to do his homework than if he just says, hey, I'm going to do the homework. That is a